Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn, and we are talking about the man who redefined forgiveness. And obviously, we're talking about Jesus. And yesterday, we looked at the how Peter asked Jesus about how many times do I need to forgive somebody, and he thought he was being a super follower of Jesus by saying 7 times, because the Jewish customs back then, if you did 3 times was considered enough. But he doubled that, even added the bonus, and yet Jesus, of course, said, no, a little bit more than that. He talked about 70 times 7, right? And a lot of times we've heard that, and we just are like, oh, my goodness. And so if you missed yesterday's program, I hope that you will go and take a listen to that. You go to our website, hopeisheretoday.org, or wherever that you like to listen to podcast, and I think you'll really be blessed by that program. But as we continue looking at how Jesus redefined forgiveness, I'm always so thankful to know that Jesus never asks us to do more than he's already modeled and done for us. And that's one of the things that inspires me and helps me to follow Jesus and be a Christian, because Jesus modeled it. And when I think I just can't do this or that's too hard, Jesus is like, hey, man, I understand, but look what I did. And, of course, Jesus practiced what he preached about forgiveness in the most painful, excruciatingly painful time of his life upon the cross. He demonstrated the ultimate act of forgiveness on the cross. Luke chapter 23, verse 34, Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Now, I want you to think about this. Jesus is speaking those words from the cross. The nails are still in his hands and his feet. The soldiers are gambling for his clothes. The crowd is still mocking him, and no apology's been offered to him. I mean, no one's asked for forgiveness, and yet Jesus forgives. I mean, think about that. There's people yelling at him, mocking. Put a sign over in King of the Jews. Oh, yeah, you're a king, all right. Yeah, if you're all that, yeah, you're son of God. Yeah, why don't you call 10,000 angels down, help you? How's that working for you now, Jesus? How about that, big boy? And, friends, we think about, we have smack, we have insults given to us, both in person, behind our back, social media. And yet Jesus is going through it on a cross, and he did nothing wrong. But once again, Jesus still said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And, friends, forgiveness, it doesn't wait for remorse. Jesus, he wasn't waiting for them to say, hey, we're sorry we did all that to you, Jesus. Sorry we stripped you down naked in front of all these people, including your mom, gambling for your robe, your clothes. No, forgiveness doesn't wait for remorse. It flows from grace. Here's what I know, friends. I love this quote by Anne Lamott. I think this is great. Kind of sums it up when we don't like to forgive. Not forgiving, she says, is like drinking rat poison and then waiting for the rat to die. Wow. It's so good. Not forgiving is like drinking rat poison and then waiting for the rat to die. Friends, Jesus understood something we often miss. Forgiveness isn't primarily about the person who hurt you. It's about the condition of your own heart. And here's the deeper truth. You and I will never forgive anyone more than God has already forgiven us. We'll say that again, okay? Listen up. If you checked out on me for a minute, or you're driving down the road and you zoned out, or you're at home listening on a podcast or on the treadmill and you just kind of zoned out, think about your to-do list, listen, please, focus to this. This is huge. You and I will never forgive anyone more than God's already forgiven us. Wow. And friends, the cross reminds us of that. Our debt to God is far greater than any debt someone else owes us. Yet, through Jesus Christ, our debt was paid in full. It was canceled. It was canceled. Friends, I've learned in my 25 years, one of the reasons people can't forgive others, okay? One of the reasons that I've learned the most here in my 25 years now, 25 years this September, since I've been doing ministry, started doing ministry, is that people can't forgive others because they haven't forgiven themselves. People can't forgive others because they haven't forgiven themselves. I share it often, friends, but, the number one thing that I've learned is that people are harder on themselves than God is. And it grieves me to say that. But friends, we just think God's up there waiting just for us to do something wrong and break one of the 10 commandments. And like a teacher back when I was in school, they could tap you on the knuckles with a ruler if you were misbehaving, okay? Friends, that's not who God is. And yet we act like God can never use us because we made mistakes and we're not perfect. And all through the Bible, friends, God used people. Think about King David. Despite committing adultery with Bathsheba and then later having her husband Uriah murdered, okay, to cover his, getting her pregnant, after he confessed his sins to God and asked for forgiveness, Jesus used him in a powerful way. He's the only person in the Bible described as a man after God's own heart. Yeah, he made a big mistake, 2 big mistakes, broke 2 of the commandments, adultery and murdered somebody. And friends, please don't misunderstand me. It doesn't give us an excuse to do these things, but I'm just saying for things you've done in your past, you think, well, God can never use me and he doesn't love me. Friends, there's no better example than David. King Manasseh, maybe somebody you're not familiar with. He was one of Judah's most wicked kings who practiced idolatry and witchcraft and was forgiven and restored after he humbled himself and prayed while he was imprisoned. God forgave him and used him again. And then good old Saul of Tarsus. We know him today as Paul, okay? He was a persecutor of the early church, even killing Christians. Paul was forgiven and transformed, and he wrote more books in the New Testament of the Bible than anyone else. He is a great example of showing that no one is beyond redemption. Friends, we can go on and on. Think about the prodigal son, the one that told his dad, hey, I want to have my inheritance now. And that was an insult to the dad back then, but the dad went on and gave it to him. His father hadn't died yet, wasn't even ill. And then he went off and basically, like today's times, went to Las Vegas and partied till he dropped and gambled, and it was all gone. And then he came back, humbled himself one day, and the story that Jesus shared in this parable shows a father going back to his son, in fact, running after his son, who this is God in this case in the story, which was unheard of about people running, fathers running like that, okay, especially with those robes on and, the clothes they wore, the sandals. But it was just showing how happy God the Father was to see the Son. And so you may be a prodigal. You've ran from God, and yet he is waiting with open arms. And if you come towards him, friends, he comes running towards you. Speaking of the cross earlier, the thief on the cross, remember? He asked Jesus for forgiveness, and Jesus promised him that he would be in paradise one day, even though he was a criminal and deserved to be on the cross. But Jesus, because of his humility and asking for forgiveness, forgave him, and we'll meet him in heaven someday. What about the people in Nineveh? After hearing Jonah's warning, okay, about finally the wicked city of Nineveh finally repented, and God spared them from destruction, but there was a lot of darkness going on in Nineveh at the time. Then we talked about old Peter. What a Jesus. Big 3, his closest friends, Peter, James, and John, denied Peter not once. Denied Jesus not once, not twice, but 3 times. But later, Jesus forgave Peter, and he was restored to leadership by Jesus after the resurrection. And man, God used Peter in a big, big way to start his church. And Peter's one of my favorite people in the Bible, because I can relate to him. Because, man, I stick my foot in my mouth sometimes. My intentions are good, but sometimes I get a little bit too ahead of God, and I speak before I think. Then last but not least, think about Rahab, a prostitute in Jericho, who through faith was forgiven, but she was then integrated into God's people, and she later appeared in the lineage of Jesus. So friends, don't say that God can't forgive you and he can't use you. I just share with you 7 examples right there. And speaking of Rahab, man, there's so many women in the Bible that God used, and we had her on as a guest a couple weeks ago, but Jamie Holker, author of the wonderful Bible study called Esteem, God and His View of Women, is going to be in Lexington at Gardenside Christian Church on Tuesday night starting April 7th through May 19th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Okay? And man, I really would love to have you join us. The Bible study book, it's awesome. I've seen it. I've had friends of mine read it, and it's incredible. She's a gifted teacher. She's going to be coming up from Franklin, Tennessee. And man, we're believing God for 100 women to come. And the Gardenside Christian Church in Lexington, Kentucky, we're located over between Harrodsburg Road and Versailles Road. Okay? And man, it's going to be a great, great time of teaching. But after she teaches, we're going to be sitting around round tables. There'll be a time, if you want to have some discussion about it, have some community, maybe meet some other women in central Kentucky. And so I hope that you will come. If you want to reserve your spot, just go to gardensidecc.org. That's gardensidecc.org, and you'll see it on our website. There's a picture of Jamie in the Bible study. Just click on that, and you can register there. And man, we would love to have you, and feel free to bring a friend or just come by yourself. Be a great opportunity to meet some ladies. That'll start on Tuesday night, April 7th. It'll be from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And I know God's going to show up in a big, big way. But friends, here's what I know. You know, some of us need to stop playing God and let yourself out of this self-imposed prison. You know, you got the key to do that. You may have asked Jesus for forgiveness, but you need to accept that grace for him. Unlock the door and move forward. One of my favorite Bible verses, Philippians chapter 3, verse 13. It says, I'm still not all I should be, but I'm focusing all my energies on this one thing, forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. Let me say it again. Philippians 3:13. Somebody listening or watching on our YouTube channel, you need to hear this verse today. I am still not all I should be, but I'm focusing all my energies on this one thing, forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. Oh, friends, such a good verse. I've got that on a canvas in my house, and I see it every morning because I need to be reminded I got a fresh start, and it's time to move forward. Fourth and final thing on forgiveness that Jesus taught us is that forgiveness sets us free. Okay, forgiveness sets us free. Paul said in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 31 and 32, get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Notice Paul didn't say if you feel like forgiving, but he does say get rid of bitterness. Because, friends, bitterness spreads and it poisons our relationships, it damages our families, and it hardens our hearts. Corey Ten Boom, who survived a Nazi concentration camp, okay, I mean, just horrific conditions for several years, said forgiveness is the key that unlocks the door of resentment and the handcuffs of hate. Oh, my gosh. But let me be clear, friends. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It's not pretending nothing happened. It's not trusting someone immediately, okay? And it's not removing consequences. Forgiveness is releasing the right for revenge, and it's handing back justice to God. Romans chapter 12, verse 17 through 19 says it this way. Never pay back evil with more evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see you are honorable. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. Dear friends, never take revenge. Leave that to the righteous anger of God. For the scriptures say, I will take revenge and I will pay them back, says the Lord. Friends, Roy Stewart, a good friend of mine, says, holding on to forgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. So, friends, I want to encourage you to forgive others and forgive yourself, and you will truly be free. My name's Greg Horn, and this is Hope is Here.